The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's Saturday night, March the 30th, Eastern Daylight Time. And if you're new to the channel, this is the Divided We Stand YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook group page. So if you're interested in becoming a member of that, we ask that you run on over to Facebook and become a member. There are a few questions you have to answer before you become a member, but that's not a big deal.
No, you don't.
Well, things are changing a little bit. We'll see what happens. Dave will talk about that in a bit. So yeah, we'll hope that you join us. So remember, please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not done so already. We are not monetized. We don't look for anything. We simply want to build a safe place where like-minded liberals or semi-liberals can commiserate about the situation and do something about the election. Well, it's that time. We're going to be switching over to Arlington, Virginia to see our good friend David Price, who's also
Is that where I am? I
a
always
former
forget
journalist. Writer. Here he is.
I always forget where I am. I wasn't. Last week there was no show, and there were a couple reasons. One, and congratulations on that. It was Brian and his wife Ronnie's. How many anniversaries? How many
22.
years? Ronnie stayed with you for 22 years?
Well, actually, we've been together for 23 years. So.
You know. Oh, so you cohabitated in sin? Is that what you're telling us?
Is
that the reveal tonight? And I was somewhere in the Caribbean, on a 60s music cruise. And I won't talk about the music cruise tonight, but I will talk about some of the interesting experience that we had politically on that cruise.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. Brian mentioned earlier, and for a long time, Brian won't take credit for it. It really is his page. If it's unsuccessful, it's my page and my show if it's successful. Now, Brian was the creator. It came out of a former show he did YouTube called The Reality Report. And when Trump appeared on the horizon, we decided, Brian called me and said, will you do a show? Can we do something? And I said, sure. And
you have to do something.
This is what? How many shows is this for us now?
This is 209 for us.
So with 209 shows,
and over a span of 3 years.
Yeah, and so basically, we knew from the experiences with Trump in the White House, and it kind of was clear that he was going to be the candidate. And that kind of spooked me. I believe it spooked you too, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brian came up with the design for what you're listening to right now and seeing. And then we jointly worked on a Facebook page. And what we wanted to do with that Facebook page, as Brian says in the intro, is to make it a community where like-minded individuals, and the like-mindedness part is you don't want anything to do with Trump, and you're willing to do anything morally or legally possible to stop him. And in the initial thing, one of the things about social media is you can have it closed, you can have it open. There's all kinds of different ways you could do it. And we decided that we would only approve people who answered, well, I think it was like 6 questions. It wasn't very many.
5 or 6 questions. That's it.
Very, very basic. And a lot of our Facebook subscribers were sending out invites to their friends, and their friends wanted to join, but they weren't answering the questions.
Right.
Now, we did have a couple of problems early, and that's one of the reasons we went to more of the questions, because we had a couple of, trolls. Not
We did
many.
have troll. We probably had around 100 trolls over 3 years.
Yeah, and that's not bad. For
And we've
a
had, I
liberal
think,
show.
11 banned people.
Right. And what happened with that is we quickly, because we have a right, we don't, as running this program, we have the absolute right under the Constitution. Well, actually, because it's not mentioned in the Constitution, we do. There's no damage with free speech or just like Facebook can ban it, we can ban anybody. So we felt really comfortable with that. But as this election nears, I talked to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people today at various times involved in politics, from someone very well, the former surrogate of Cumberland
Yes,
County,
Yes,
and
indeed.
one of your
Doug.
people, Doug Grenier, who was a politician for 112 years or something, and he is just beside himself, terrified because he doesn't see it. I talked to a couple people who are staunch Democrats down here. They don't feel confident, but they think that Biden will, but right now, again, we have to do, those of us who either are for Joe Biden or against Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. We have to stop Trump. And so I suggested, and Brian agreed, that we're going to open the page up without those questions. So I'll be posting a lot on the page, asking people who are already there to invite their friends, that feel that Trump is a danger or that love Joe Biden, whatever. So just again, you might want to spread the word if anybody gets upset. It might take us 24 hours if we get a troll, or 48. But
it's less likely because it is a private group.
Right.
It's still less, and we have to. It has to remain private because you can't.
Oh no,
switch back.
I would never.
We can't. It
Well, I
just
know,
can't.
but I wouldn't anyway. I mean, you want some control over it. So anyway, was that, what does that say? 400,000 listeners right now. I know you our friends from this show are the first to know this, as you'll see it. We'll be posting it all next week, and actually starting it on Monday, and we'll see what happens. I see already.
It will definitely go. I mean, the membership numbers will go up. I would, because we get bursts of membership requests because people obviously want to invite their friends. So we would probably go up to 2,000, I think, over the year.
Well, I would think so. And the other thing would be, like, I know that some of our Facebook subscribers, I think the most I saw that anybody sent in was 9. I mean, and none of them made it cut because, and now if those 9 came in, they could be there, because we're going to assume we don't take anybody who's not recommended. That's something we really don't do.
Right.
Or very rarely, I should say. Right. And so that way, and then again, our Facebook people who have said and abided by the rules, because they haven't, are kind of a pre-screening process.
I think Dave, we can speak about this openly because you and I have not talked about this, but there's one thing that I've always held steady to. If somebody joins the group and they're just continually railing against Biden, I have a problem with that.
Well, you know how you solve that problem? You bump them out.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to bump them. I haven't, there's a few people of late.
I will.
All right. But, because they do the subtle thing, like some of the videos that they post are okay. Then
I'll try.
I mean, we can get rid of their posts. That's easy enough.
Well, that's true. But I mean, as I said, I don't think it'll be a problem. We'll see. And it's like anything else when you make a change, you plan it out as best you can. And then you do something about it, and hopefully it's successful. If not, you alter it. If the alterations aren't good, you drop it. But at this point, it's so cliched. It's been said so many times, but I actually believe this. Whether you are 2 days old or 100, what's the oldest person now? 113, I think, in the world. I don't know what it is in America. Old. This is going to be the most important election of your lifetime. And the reason is, it's not about Republicans and Democrats, although it is. It's not about liberals and conservatives, though it is. Mm-hmm. It's about one candidate representing, believing in and trying to keep democracy, and another candidate believing in himself as a narcissist, authoritarian rule, fascism, and it's not some kind of joke. I mean, this is people, I don't want to hear that. It's not. It is, okay, because one way or the other on the day after Election Day, it may not be the day after Election Day because this will be so highly contested. It may end up in the Supreme Court again. Who knows?
Right, and that's the worries.
Yeah.
And he just keeps appealing. And like Larry David said this past week, I mean, Trump knows that he lost. And if he loses this time, which I assume he will again.
You're still going with him losing, and
I think my problem is not the vote. The problem is what happens afterwards, and actually slightly before. I don't trust them. I mean, and you don't either.
I don't, and I honestly believe, as I don't say this with any sense of joy, but I really believe that were the election tomorrow, Donald Trump would win. But the good thing is there are a whole hell of a lot of tomorrows to come before the real vote, right? But it's very close. I've decided to disregard the polls. I mean, we've talked that ad infinitum on this show. Unfortunately, there are too many polls for any poll to be taken seriously, and people lie, in the polls. They could be for somebody or not for somebody, or they want to goof, whatever. But it's not. You don't throw in the towel. You just work harder.
Right.
So let's see. What do we want to say? Well, let's start with a positive for Mr. Joe Biden this week. He goes to New York, joined by two former presidents, one of which Mr. Biden served, or President Biden served 8 years as his VP, and that, of course, is Barack Obama. And then you've got Bill Clinton. Now, you had Stephen Colbert kind of as the, in the role of moderator, and you had some younger music artists trying to. We know that that's a weakness with Biden. He is 81. Mm-hmm. But the thing that's interesting is it was the single largest fundraiser in presidential history. They raised
like $25 million or something.
It's been counted now at $26 million. Now, that can be viewed a few ways. Was that a lot of $10 contributions, or was it $125 million? Yeah. Well, but I mean, it's much better. Obviously, it's much better if it's more contributors. It's still good money. It'll be spent.
I still think it has to be some of your big.
Well, what happens is, from all indications, and this is accurate, Biden's, they call it, the war chest. I wish we wouldn't use war in sports words, but it is what it is. So the war chest is, how much you have available to you to spend for your election. And Joey just stole my line. Joey, I was going there next. Great minds like yours and mine think alike. Now, on the other hand, remember a few weeks ago, we had Trump shilling his sneakers. Mm-hmm. And you know what I find interesting?
It's nonstop now.
Well, I got to file. Well, first of all, we can talk about that all night. Donald Trump is in two types of physical danger. If the Lost in Space, Lost in Space was there, and he had had Robbie the Robot there, he'd just be going, danger, Donald Trump, danger, Donald Trump. And the one side, of course, is all the fines that he's facing. Now, again, there was a lot of deflation of anti-Trump people when, round numbers, it was lowered from 450 million to around 175. That didn't surprise me, not because I thought 450 was a little exorbitant. So it would be nice if viewers were given a heads up. Gary, could you explain that a little bit? I don't know what you were.
He wants to be told we have a show at 9:00 on Saturday night.
You want to know something, Gary? That's not a bad suggestion. It's really not. And I will take that on myself because I have more time than Brian. So, Gary, thank you for that. I think it is a good suggestion. So I will do that. So Trump is in financial trouble from his criminal and actions and his civil actions, but he's also in trouble with his Republican campaign contributions. They're trailing abysmally to those being raised by the Democrats. Now, money does not buy an election, but it buys ads, and that's what people begin to pay attention to. We're seeing that more and more. So, on one hand, interesting some background on the Bible. It was not something, I mean, that Trump took on himself. It was an existing company that sold Bibles that was already in trouble because people were buying the Bibles and it weren't being delivered. So it's a perfect business for Trump. Sell shoes, don't deliver them. Sell Bibles, don't deliver them. But you do get the money. And I'll be interested to see. And again, as a former journalist, this really bothers me. I don't want to, it's like attacking your brother. You don't want to attack him. But they're doing a piss poor job of following up. This is the kind of thing, I mean, they're doing, Trump, I realize Trump is difficult to deal with. He's something new. We're trying to accommodate that. Journalists are supposed to be objective. Not this time. That's like saying, that would be like, it's almost as bad, honestly, seriously. Not the outcome, but it's almost like the first time Adolf Hitler appears in Nazi Germany. In other words, if we don't stop him here, we're in real trouble. And we have to have help. And there are journalists doing it. I don't mean of all of them. But I would put somebody on, just one reporter, if I were the Washington Post, following the Bibles, one following the shoes, daily reports, that. Now, on the journalism side, Brian, the problem is that there are people who believe in the journalism business that if you write anything about Trump, you're kind of acknowledging his existence, and it doesn't matter. He's here. It's real. Fox News is going to do it. Newsmax is going to do it. AON is going to do it. The right-wing radio stations are going to do it. So I would hope that the media does a little bit better job about that. I did remember 59.99, you too. I don't know if you saw some of the, there's very clever people out there. Have you seen where there's a lot of them going around, the memes where Trump opens the Bible, right? So he's standing, and in the middle is a centerfold. Have you seen those?
No, I've
They're
not.
kind of, yeah, that's kind of us striking back, right? Then some people are referring back, which I've actually, it's right. It's actually 2.4 miles from my house. The church where he stood, remember, and had the Bible out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony, I agree with you, and I know you're a really spiritual person with a strong religious background, and I can't imagine, how you would feel that Trump was just defiling what you absolutely believe, and that way. But remember, he told the Bible, but he had it upside down. He has no clue. But he said, now this week, as he started Bible, three things stayed with me. One is, it's a very good book. Huh?
It's his favorite book, he said.
He went further and he said it's his favorite books. And he said, I have many Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Donald Trump has many everythings in his mind, but that's not it. But my favorite quote from that, look how they tied it. I'm doing this because we must make America pray again. Now, if that doesn't smack of theocracy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what does. Any of your take on either Biden getting the money, which is nice, or Trump being forced to be the con man? And you know what? One thing before I turn it over to you, Brian. What I think about, I mean, I wonder, does Trump enjoy that? You know what I mean? Like being a diabolical P.T. Barnum? I mean, I don't know. Does he think, oh wow, I can get over? I mean, I don't know. Or is he just oblivious?
Well, I'll say this is just my opinion. Whether he enjoys it or not, he has a disposition. It seems as though he is addicted to that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, again, I'm just speculating, but when you live a life of lies, when you lie about your net worth, he is just a compulsive liar. So I don't think he can help it. Again, I'm an adherent to the idea of a deterministic universe, and he is driven for whatever experiences he had as a kid. He probably, I'm going to guess, lacked attention from his parents, or maybe they were mean to him. I don't know.
Well, we don't know.
I only hope that this Barron is not going to become, president in
Well,
20 years.
well,
This
here's the thing
is
with
it's frightening.
again, I rail every Saturday about conspiracies and falsehoods and lies and truth. There apparently, and I'll tell you why I think there's been questions. Barron is probably a classified student, which means he's special ed. Now that can go all the way from minor attention deficit and run the whole gamut. And the reason that I believe that's true, the school that they enrolled him in when in D.C. was a private school that specialized in those issues. But but again, I don't know. I will say this about Barron: he's getting tall.
Oh, that's
you know,
that's the one thing that I saw. He must be 6'4", 6'5" right now.
and he's
And
just
because
shot
she's a
up.
tall woman, and he's
Right.
around what, 6'2". So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just because again, he Melania, like her, hate her, whatever. I think she tried, and maybe it's Donald's orders. She's tried to do what a mother might do in that situation, and most all presidential wives have done. Minimize the spotlight on her son. Hey, Jeff. Anyway, so we got that going on, right? Now, I suppose if one had to say the biggest story of the week, it would be the tragedy of the bridge in Baltimore. And indeed, it is a tragedy.
right, because it's not only the deaths, and it's not only the fact that the bridge is gone, but it's blocking all traffic.
Well, and I was told.
I'm talking about
like I said-
sea traffic coming up through.
Oh, no.
harbor.
Did you remember when the ship got lodged at the Suez Canal?
Yes, indeed.
And that shut it down, and there was a scarcity of product because people don't. I mean, I didn't. Okay, until that happened. I mean, we need to realize that if it doesn't build here or grown here, it comes by ship for the most part. There are a few cargo planes, but basically that is where it comes from. And Baltimore is, and I don't know the ranking, and maybe somebody out there can help me, but I know it's among the top 5 ports in America of delivery.
Well, here's one thing I do know, and relates to where you used to live, Dave, where I live, and that's the Delaware
Right.
Bay. I heard a fact that aside from the Mississippi River, the Delaware Bay coming up through the Delaware is the busiest. I mean, literally every
And-
3 or 4 minutes, busiest waterway. Now, that doesn't mean that Baltimore is not busy. It's extremely busy because all of those places have just
Right.
things
But of
from
course,
overseas.
Baltimore also connects that way. Do you know what I mean? That
Right.
Philadelphia-Baltimore connection, both by
And we can't say that
95.
can't happen in Philadelphia too. With
Oh,
the wrong
no. Well,
ship comes
look,
through.
we live in a time where there are a lot of dangers. I don't know, with the exception of nuclear power and our causing our own extinction with environmental stupidity. But there's always been dangers, right?
Right,
in
but
the world.
but the trucks are heavier now. You have more traffic coming in because there's
Correct.
more people. So there's a greater chance. And these bridges, that what the Republicans have done with infrastructure, they've tried to block anything that,
Well,
Biden's
they own,
trying.
well, that's it. And we have known for a long time, back Clinton, maybe even, you're on live, notifications are a bit off. Well, Brian's a bit off, so we'll see if Brian
You have to hit that bell there. And when Dave and I go on, we use Ecamm, and Ecamm schedules it, and we don't schedule ahead of time because we're not even sure what time we're going to be on from minute to minute. But we get on, so it's a little bit
So
rough.
we're
But in general, if you're home Saturday night and it's around 9:00 Eastern Daylight Time, you're good.
And what else you could do if you do like the show, and we appreciate, the likes that we get, you could just, when you get up Saturday morning, just sit in front of your computer till we come on. I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway.
Can I
so
mention,
we've
Dave,
got-
to the folks,
Sure.
we have had a nice increase since we
Oh,
last
yeah,
spoke.
tell the
We
people
have
about
gone
that.
up from, I think, 151 subscribers to 257. We have had some viral videos. I do put out these shorts. Some do well, some don't. But in general, it does help get subscribers. Now, don't forget, people will subscribe for different reasons. Some people just like the shorts. Some people enjoy just going to the Facebook page. Some people don't like, showing up for a live show to watch, and they watch it later, which is fine. And we're learning that now. I know I'm learning that now. It's everything wrapped up into one. But things are kind of looking up for this channel, and hopefully we can. If we keep doing this, that means in about 9 months we'd have over 1,000 subscribers, which is not necessarily what we're looking for, but
and that's just for the video portion, not counting the Facebook.
Right. The Facebook page, we have 1,300 people, and again, that we'll probably go to 2,000.
We can. I mean, sorry, we're secret, but I've gone back and forth in my mind. Should we have a divided we stand on the social media formerly known as Twitter, and although I still use that for other various purposes, not the least of which is staying connected to not only the MAGA world, but the crazy world of conspiracies, I don't think it would benefit us much, just because I don't think it would. But if you, certainly I would entertain the other side. Now, so we've got this bridge, and of course it was interesting. One of the things that I tried to do on that cruise, pretty much I was out 7 days, and I said, you know what? We're not going to. I'm going to try to turn off from social media as much as I can. We did not in 7 days on that ship turn the TV on once, which is not unusual for us. So I first heard from we went with another couple, and they got up for breakfast, and Gene and I, and that's where I first heard about this cyber attack, and I began thinking, or cyber bridge collapse, and I began thinking of what would happen. I said, well, somebody's going to say it's a terrorist. So, and they did. I mean, it didn't take long for the crazies to come up with some ideas. Now, some of them aren't crazy. It appears at this point. It appears at this point, and it's not done yet, that this was what does happen in life, an accident. Okay, not every bad thing that happens in the world is a result of some nefarious or three-dimensional chess-like conspiracy. But I would just want to touch on Brian a little bit, and I think I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to just run through them for a moment, pause for a second, and if you want to comment on them, rather than listing them all and come back. Right. All right, so you've got the first one that comes up was the one, this is terrorism. Now, post 9/11, post Oklahoma City, post a number of things, post the insurrection, if you will, the siege or takeover of the Capitol, that's not a bad thing to think. But very quickly, Baltimore mayor and other people got out in front of it. And, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm naive, but I'm pretty sure if it were a terrorist attack, we would know, relatively quickly.
Absolutely.
The second one, of course, is one that should be, and I've talked to a few people in DC, and they're more concerned about this than they are actually a dirty bomb or a nuclear warhead, and that's a cyber attack. That's in the news a lot. We see it, and it's something I don't completely understand. I mean, what it means is bad people who don't like America can get a hold of the computer system, and that's in America, the grid. I mean, all things are vulnerable because if you stop and think about it, Brian, what isn't connected, in some way to the internet grid? Very little, right? But that's been kind of dismissed. The next was a takeoff on that, not a terrorist attack, but a planned attack. And I found it interesting. And Brian, I really want you to figure out, I can't quite figure out why this is. It was either Israel or the Ukraine. Why not? Well, I guess that would be a terrorist attack if it was Hamas. But why not Russia? I mean, it was just immediately. But again, if you think about it, it's going to come from the right. It's going to come from MAGA. It's going to come from the crazy parts of MAGA. So I guess it does make sense. But I just thought it was very interesting when you've got 2 countries or 4 countries at war that these things only did 2. Well, those are all realistic possibilities, correct, Brian? I mean, I don't think they happened, but it's not outlandish that if it turned out, it could, and it still could turn out to one of those, right? It could, but it's not, I don't think. Right. Now we go to the crazy world of Arthur Brown. So the first one along that is racist, 100%. Now, do you know what DEI is, Brian? It's an acronym.
I could only speculate.
Go ahead.
Does the first one have to do with death?
No, diversity,
Oh, okay.
equity, and that. So it's basically a modern, a modern day version of affirmative action. Okay. Well, the right and racists and MAGA and the neo Nazis and of course are attacking that. So their theory was, and they were quite honest about it, that black people were involved. There's a black mayor of Baltimore, and therefore it was the result of DEI policies. For example, and they don't understand. I don't think you're gonna have it would be great, if the world were equal and everybody's balanced. And there's some, quite honestly, there are some positions that maybe somebody rose for affirmative action or DEI not qualified to be. But again, it's just quickly taking.
It's funny.
Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. Yeah, that's good. Jeff, you win tonight's prize, which is Brian will never call your house. That's tonight's prize. He's going to call everybody else, but you've earned tonight's prize. Yeah, I think global. They'd still that dislike of Biden, tracks through back to Obama, and they just really don't. I think it would be interesting. Why not try that? See what would happen. I mean, certainly, you need to reach out to that audience. So now we get down to my favorite two that have been going around this week. I go back and forth on which one of these is the craziest and which one of these, is the more absurd. All right, so I'm going to go with the order. And think about this, ladies and gentlemen and friends and family. This is what the conspiratorial right do. They're going to link a couple ideas together. And what they've come up with is the captain was impaired by his COVID vaccination.
They're going all the way.
Look.
And you might as well, if they're going to believe any kind of bullshit, you might as well just do it.
Right. Well, and again, I would submit to anyone that I've had, 5 COVID, 3 boosters, the 2 vaccinations, and I haven't suffered any bad effects at all. My wife, a little different. She has maybe a day of kind of soreness, or something, nothing. So again, but maybe my favorite of all, I guess tonight, I was kind of leaning toward the captain impaired by COVID. But as you may or may not know, Barack and Michelle, not Michael Obama, but Michelle Obama, have moved into production of movies. They're actually producing movies, which is not a bad job in terms of that. And what producers do is they fund, the movie really, in the idea that they will get back some of the profits. Or sometimes producers will fund a movie because they believe in it.
Right.
And they signed an exclusive agreement with Netflix to just produce for Netflix. And there's a movie, I haven't seen it yet. I got to look at it. I don't know if it's out or it's coming, but apparently people are saying that this followed the plot of an Obama Netflix movie that he was a producer. And so therefore he was responsible. Wow. Now,
I think everybody's learned this from Steve Bannon. It's just say any shit you want, and it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. And as you've pointed out time and time again, why the hell hasn't Steve Bannon been placed
right
where he should be?
He and again, it has to. And this gets back to actually what I wanted to mention today. Is again what I've been mentioning the last 3 or 4 months is about the legal system. I mean, as you've mentioned, this is all going up to the Supreme Court with Trump. And, you hit a court that's on your side and bang, you're okay. If not, he's in trouble. But in the end, I don't see, except for for Navarro, I don't see anybody paying, and Bannon should be. I mean, how long does it take for an appeals court to take this? It's been over a year now. He was
Well,
convicted, and this judge let him get away with it.
well, what I don't understand, and again, I invite Attorney General Merrick Garland to please come on this show. I would love to talk to him. As the head, it's like, okay, it's like you and I are, I'm a former educator, you're an educator. Bad things happen, the principal gets blamed, right? I mean, that's it's his or her school. But what happens here, and so I guess it would kind of be like the superintendent of the school district and the principal, with Joe Biden being the superintendent and Merrick Garland being the principal.
Mm-hmm.
And Merrick Garland has a phenomenal record of success as a prosecutor. Most legal experts did not think he could get would get a conviction. I talk real well, don't I? A conviction in Oklahoma City. He did. He has a stellar record. But I would submit to him, unless he has some reason that I'm not aware of, that he, again, because the proverbial buck stops there, has dragged his feet and had the department drag his feet on everything from Trump on down.
I think he's afraid of people within his own department, because there are,
Well,
and he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be. He's the boss.
No, I would agree with that. I would tend to think, and I don't know this, just what I know. I mean, when I say I know him, it's not like I know you or Gary or Joey or even any of the other people who are who are regular viewers and listeners. But yeah, well, actually, I did. I have.
And by the way, that's why I've been making these satirical videos, Dave, is that if you're going to just lie, if you're going to accuse us of this, then I'm going to accuse you of anything that I feel like I want to accuse. If you feel you can do this without any kind of evidence, then I'm going to do the same thing to you, and you won't like it.
So why don't we if anybody be interested in that, that'd be an interesting project for us to do. 3 or 4 people, 5. I mean, that would be fun. I mean, it really would be fun. I have but anyway. Mr. Garland, back to Mr. Garland. In my way of mind, there's no way that we should not have had the Georgia election.
Right, he wasted a year.
And then we got, and I'm sorry, I know people have the right to have sex when it's consensual with any people that are of age or whatever, but I'm sorry, Fanny, I think you blew it. With that, because now, first of all, you've lost. If he would be a good prosecutor, and I've heard some things he wasn't, but you've lost Nathan Wade, and you've got to not start from scratch, but you got somebody new, and now it really is almost tainted. And it may be. I think it'll make it much more difficult to get a guilty plea, no matter what they have.
I would agree.
I do. And Robert Smith, you've been moving as quickly as you can, but the courts have said go to the Supreme Court first, and they're dragging their feet. And
absolutely.
And then you've got the one case though. And I don't say this because Stormy Daniels is my girl. She is. The idea of that case, Brian, that's coming first. They delayed it, but they only delayed it till April. So it went from March 26th to the end of April. And there'll be enough
but
time.
He's still going to do the appeal thing after he loses the case. He's going to appeal.
I understand that, but even with that, that seems to be the legal opinion. Is the only case that will be could be concluded prior to the election. Most legal people think it's the weaker or the weakest of the cases. But the thing is, it does if he's found guilty of the charge of.
Well, if Michael, what's his name?
Cohen.
Michael Cohen had to go to jail. Then why shouldn't Trump?
Well, there's nothing. I mean, the difference is, I don't know that Trump gets special treatment. It appears he does. He just has lawyers. He has a couple shrewd lawyers, and the rest are just incompetence. And they
right, but he has the shrewd lawyers to appeal, and he has the other lawyers to just be like, sycophants to the demagogue.
And there are a number, I don't know the number. I know there's quite a number, maybe even in double figures. Let's see. I've heard from a friend of my uncle that Donald sleeps with a stuffed bunny toy. I heard the same thing, but I don't know your own. So, I mean, it must be out there, Global. It must be out. It must be true. We just put it on our show. That kind of thinking, right? The one that I love the best of those type of thinking, then we'll get on to something else, but I love the conspiracy theorists who come up with this. They propose this outlandish thing, right? Somebody, okay, I'll use myself, okay? I was found sexually fondling a grizzly bear. I don't know, whatever. And, I don't dignify it with response. And the conspiracy theorists, see, I told you, I told you.
Let me interrupt you for one minute here, Dave. I think I had one little video and I
Go ahead.
But I wanted to show the intensity, not just, we know that people are crazy, but the intensity of how these people believe. So we'll just check this out real quick.
Op at St. James Church. You think that was a photo op? Behind you. They were looking to take out our president in the capital of the United States of America.
They ain't taking him out.
He knows what's up. It's evil. What do you think, we're like those communists? We cower down to evil and bend? No, my president walked out there, went in front of the church, and held the Holy Bible in front of that American church. Are you kidding me? We will not cower down to evil. We're Americans. Q is everybody. You don't know who particularly Q is. Q is a movement, okay? It says think for yourself. It doesn't tell you to follow one leader. You can think about what you want with Q. But I follow the facts and I follow information, and I think for myself and as American, okay? Nobody's gonna tell me how to think. I'll take the facts in, I'll research for myself, and I'll make my own decision. And I see it as clear as day. I've been posting on Facebook for 4 to 5 years about this. If Hillary Clinton would have won, the world would have been over. It was game, set, match for America. She was their last step. She wasn't supposed to lose. We're taking back our country, and it's going to be biblical.
All right.
Well, let's see. I would have about 38 issues in that short clip with this good gentleman. I'm trying to think. I don't see any way where he comes back to sanity. He's insane.
And there's so many people just like that person.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's kind of a brilliant segue. Thank you for something I wanted to talk about tonight. The cruise that I was on, and it is a music cruise. Bands from the '60s, so they range from, some big. They were mostly, kind of big names. Some of them very old. Gary Lewis. And the Playboys. I'd never seen him. I didn't even know he's still around. And it's geared for that. But there were some great bands too. Randy Bachman, and that is true. I learned that it's not Randy Bachman. It's Randy Bachman. Is it really? It's a long story, but you can tune into my music channel to learn about that. But in the course of conversation, it's kind of an unwritten rule on that ship, or that we don't discuss politics. Because we're there for what we agree on, and that's the music, right? But of course, that to me, the fact that we kind of violate that, or almost have to violate that because it's such a big issue. So I actually, Brian, as I mentioned to you just before we went on the air, and I want to they almost captured the three categories, or three of the categories of Trumpers. I talked to three, happened to be men, just worked out that way. All three who were there with their wives, who didn't say much. That doesn't say they never talk. But anyway, so the first was funny, and we found he was almost like, I knew from talking to him, initially I figured he's a Republican. Basically, he's a financial analyst, not that they're all Republican, a very well-to-do, actually has gone, which I was fascinated to listen to. They have these rock fantasy camps where it's like baseball fantasy, and you go there and they'll have somebody, and he's become friendly with like Felix Cavalier, who was on the ship, Mark Farner from Grand Funk, and this guy Fred has a band. He's he's a little bit younger than I am. I'm 72. He's 68, I guess. But anyway, he had a funny reason, because he's a funny guy, for being opposed to Joe Biden, and that reason is Joe Biden lives where, Brian? What state?
Delaware.
Right. And Fred, my new friend, is actually literally his next door neighbor. So he doesn't like him as a neighbor. He doesn't like his politics. That's fine. But he actually is a Trump supporter because Trump is the Republican nominee. And therefore, he's willing to overlook everything else because in his view, any Republican is better than any Democrat. So that's one kind. It doesn't excuse him, but that was a level. The second, I actually rode on a leg, sat next to me on the plane from Miami to Atlanta. We flew into Atlanta, had a layover, and then flew to D.C. And he was from Illinois, and he was the rural guy. We talked quite a bit about guns because that was his big issue. He has both he and his wife have have a concealed weapons permit. He shoots frequently. He had said, I have more than 50 guns in his home, a gun collector, right? But he doesn't understand why the open carry doesn't apply to his AK-47. Okay. And also, when I say rural, he is from that point, but really smart. He was an engineer who actually designed parts for all over the world, and he built his own plane. I didn't even know people could do that. We're not talking about the guy that you showed earlier. That's neither of these guys were that. And I just really wanted to probe their minds. So I wasn't trying to change them or anything. But at some point I would just say, well, I'm so left. It's always my line I use. I'm so left that Fidel Castro is too liberal for me, and they usually get the idea. But, we were able, it's not that we could talk, but you can listen, right? I mean, there's no way I would have convinced them. The third was our more typical nice guy. We talked during right after. We sat together up on the upper deck of the ship and watched Tommy James and the Shondells do Moni Moni and Hanky Panky and all their hits. And we got done. We stayed around about an hour talking. And his thing was, kind of the Bible, God, white, Democrats, Hollywood elites kind of thing. And I have no idea they're the only three people I talked about, but if you could have divorced politics from any one of them, they were really great guys. They could be your friend, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. Once you hear that, what are you writing to Stormy Daniels? What are you doing there?
No, somebody asked me a question because I did have a Zappa song that Trump sang. So
Zappa. Oh,
Frank Zappa.
On your thing. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, the guy that you showed is the one that is the most dangerous, obviously, because he's stone cold stupid, he's stone cold insane, and unless he was play acting for the cameras, he certainly has a propensity for violent action. I mean, there's no question about that. Let's see, what else was in the world this week? Oh, yeah. Rona McDaniel. Did you follow that story this week? Do you know what it's about?
Yes, to some degree. That
okay,
she was
what
hired by MSNBC, and obviously there was a revolt by many of those working there, especially Rachel Maddow
and Chuck Todd.
And Chuck Todd, who finally, I don't know,
did something.
Right.
Well, although I will say in defense of Chuck Todd, I was once delivering a talk in D.C. and a woman raised her hand because I was working at the museum, and she said, "You might know my grandson." I said, "Who is it?" It was Chuck Todd. So he has a very nice grandmother. Whatever else we say about him. Let's see. Gary has a true color see Biden on the left as being evil. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you heard. I mean, that's
and they think that we're from like the devil.
Well, and honestly, if I believed literally in God and the devil, I would say Trump is evil, and I would take my facts to any court in the land that was objective, and feel that I would prevail over someone who said Biden was evil or Trump was not evil.
Right. By the way, Dave, one of the, I mean, I had so many Trumpers comment on my videos. I mean, there are other channels that do what I do, but they block the block. I didn't block them, but one of them said. This channel is the sign of the beast. Like,
well,
as if I'd actually even open up a Bible, to be honest. No offense.
What's funny about that is, first of all, of course, you know where that comes from, the book of Revelations, which is supposed to be apocalyptic and talk about the number 666. Now, I will share one experience I had, which was very weird. Years ago, Judy and I were in Austin. And in Austin is one of the most famous battle sites in all of America. That's where the Alamo is. And a lot of times we'll do a thing if we're in a town, we'll go out on a ghost tour. They're fun to do. I mean, there's, and they're just really fun. And we were out on one. And they were just talking about, these weren't believers, so but they did. We were tonight. They shined a light up over the entrance of the Alamo. Now it was not. It was the way the climate was affecting the mortar and stuff. But there was a 6, 6, and a partial 6, and we would have started laughing, because it did look like it. I mean, it was just, accident. But yeah, I would believe you are the sign of the devil. But back to the Revelation and all this. The problem becomes that book has nothing to do with what people says it has to do. It has to do with the way Christians had a secret way to communicate about the Roman Empire. That's really what it was, about the Roman conquerors. That's what that book is about. And if you could break it down, unfortunately, there's nobody around left who knew those symbols. But like if all of us on this show tonight communicated in a code, right? With words, but it was a code, and so the pale horsemen were one thing, and then see, Brian, what happens too, and it gets ingrained in our culture. Okay, when most people hear the word Book of Revelations, apocalypse, end of the world, and then it just becomes that way. Anyway, the thing that I did think this was a great moment for journalism. I think it shows that you can make changes. Of course, Trump people said, and again, anybody who doesn't know who Ronna McDaniel was, she was the head of the Republican National Committee, which is the single most important position, non-elected position in a party, chief fundraiser, chief policy setter, and her name is she's not a McDaniel, she's actually a Romney. And she was disgusted and asked, and she changed her name to McDaniel. So Mitt Romney, now that John McCain is dead, and I didn't agree with almost anything he said, but Mitch Romney, we look back on those fond days, but Mitch Romney was a Republican, and he was, a central Republican, just like John McCain. And they're not there, and we're not going to see anymore. Let's see. So we've got that. Let's see. Oh, a couple other things that happened this week I think are worth mentioning. No Labels. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that. They are a group, and it's kind of secretive. Are they a pro-Trump group? Are they neutral? But basically what they want is they're saying, neither one of these guys are good, or neither party is good. And they're trying to create a viable third party. Good luck with that, No Labels people. It ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I think it would be good for the country if we had more than two parties. It's not going to happen. Forget it. And they've been searching for a candidate, right? Mm-hmm. And the most recent, did you see who turned them down? Someone you know well. Seriously, I'm not joking.
I don't. I'm trying to think. Well, you'll tell me.
I will tell you. It was New Jersey's former governor, Chris Christie. And what that would have actually been good, because I don't see Chris Christie taking any votes from Biden. Any votes he took would be Republicans who couldn't vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Again, back to the guy that I met on the plane, the one from the Illinois guy who was a farmer and the gun guy. He said, I didn't vote for Trump in the primary. I voted for Nikki Haley. Which, so one of the questions, and we can't address that right now, is what do the voters who voted for Nikki Haley in the primary, or even the few voters that voted for Ron DeSantis, what do they do in the general election? But it looks like at this point, No Labels, who was also one of their advisors, was a person who did run as a senator and won as an independent. It's different to run as a senator as an independent. Joe Lieberman died this week. But so they're on, I think they're trying to get on the ballot on, I think 35 states, because some way they can't in 15. Right. Gary, you're absolutely right. But what happens with this No Labels? But again, I think the candidate who will stay in the race for real, and I'm most worried about tipping the balance, is your favorite Kennedy, Robert Jr. And I think this is important.
I actually like him. I don't like him at all, but if I find him less distasteful than that John Kennedy from
They're different
Louisiana.
families. They're different families. John Kennedy is no relation to
Well,
the Kennedy
he's
clan.
something, you know.
Just the name. But interesting, and Brian, you're a very intelligent man, but I mean, we link names. So the first time I heard of John Kennedy, how much, if his name was John Francis Kennedy, you'd have a
Right.
JFK, right? But he's from Mississippi. But Robert is part of the Kennedy tradition. And what, again, doesn't boggle my mind, it's just uncertainty and it's a long way away. But he is polling as high as 20% in some of the swing states. So he's going to affect somebody. Now, the Kennedy name will take Democrats, right, who don't know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s own mother said, I would not vote for him under any circumstances. Man, that's pretty harsh, right? I mean, if your own mom says you're not fit, that's pretty damn harsh. But they don't see that. Then you've also got, excuse me, but on the other side, he's one of the ultimate anti-vaxxers. So he's kind of all over the place. So, he may, who knows who he's going to take from. I've seen across the board different columnists, different political reporters say different things. What is certain, if he stays in the race, he will affect the presidential race. That's what we have. The other thing with him this week, he named his vice presidential candidate. I will give him it. If he's doing it or his advisors are doing it, it was a brilliant move. He said, I'll announce it in 2 weeks. And they leaked a list of people who could be. And two topped the list and were wildly popular for two different sports. Remember, he said Aaron Rodgers, that name came out. And then Jesse the Body Ventura, his name came out. And as it turned out, it was neither. It wasn't even that. It was a woman who I had never heard of in my life, and there are many women and many men that I've never heard of. Her name is Nicole Shanahan. She is an attorney. I think she's in her, she's 38 years old. And what makes her qualified to be the vice president? She is the divorced wife of the founder of Google, which means she is a millionairess many times over. And she actually paid, do you remember the Super Bowl when they had the Kennedy ad, the controversial one, where he kind of stole from his uncle and put it in? It was a really cool ad if you believed it. It wasn't. And what it did, it was the rate, excuse me, the buy rate, they call it the buy rate or the sell rate for a Super Bowl ad was $4 million for 30 seconds, $8 million for a minute. And she paid she assumed the entire $4 million bill, which would be probably like me, saying, I could pay $4 for a Coke. I mean, we don't know how much money she has. She would have to be up there among definitely the top 100 richest women in America. And she is, but what I get so tired of is, she's the most qualified person to serve in vice president. No, she's not. She's never held political office. I mean, but we shall see what we shall see. A couple things on the horizon. The big news, what is it, a week from Monday? The eclipse. So we'll have to spend some time on that.
And I know that in the swath, that's where Kevin Wheeler lives in Ontario, right? Cutting through the Great Lakes. We're going to get a 90% one here, but they're going to get
I don't know. It's different. I mean, basically, again, we'll talk about it, but it's another place where a baseline truth has devolved, not evolved, but devolved into some of the craziest, wackest things you've ever seen. I'll just give you a taste of that. I'm going to find out if this is true, but I've seen it posted a lot. The primary, they can track kind of the primary, that's why people are going to Texas and some of these other places where it can be seen and it'll be total. It says it will pass over 7 cities in America with the name Nineveh. And Nineveh is from the Bible, and so then we're off and running, the end of the world stuff. What
Those
else
kind
did
of
I buy?
people and their kind of philosophy, it just wears me down, Dave. It's,
Well, and again, I hope you're right. As you know, as we started this show, you said that you're somewhat optimistic that Biden will win, and I certainly
I
hope.
think he will have enough votes and
I
win
certainly
in
hope.
enough swing states to do it. But that doesn't mean he's going to become president.
Well, right. I think.
But as you
you're
said, he's still commander in chief, and that is a real help.
as long as he is and again,
And willing to use that force.
if Donald Trump were to be elected, and if he were to violate the Constitution, which is a given, I mean that's just a given. That's just going to happen. I would hope that the U.S. military would decide, or well, they wouldn't vote. the generals in charge would say the Constitution is more important than the President of the United States. But who knows? Who knows where we'll be? The last thing, and I would urge everyone to go look at that if they hadn't seen it, or if you have, please post up the chat. Trump this week, and he kind of has. Well, I just reposted it. It was disgusting to me, almost beyond belief. There's a picture, obviously AI or photoshopped out, of Biden hogtied, right, with rope, being kidnapped as if he were kidnapped in a truck that a white Southerner would drive, or what? That's not. How do you let someone like that who and look, you can play any way you want around a post, but the bottom line is, if you post something and I repost it, by my reposting, unless I have a claim that it was idiotic, and I'm reposting for that reason, it is taken as, and should be taken as, you believe in this or you support this. The other thing is, this week, I want to say Oklahoma, if I'm libeling or slandering Oklahoma, I don't think so. Anyway, this Republican get-together, and do you know what the fundraiser was, Brian? Would you like to guess? That's a Republican. You won't guess it in a billion years. So it's, again, maybe I was even more shocked by this than I was by Trump, because I expected from you paid money, right? And you got to punch and kick an effigy of Joe Biden.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah, that's disgusting.
And I mean, I'm not one that has to say you have to respect. Yes, all this in presidency. But I mean, if you were wanted to do that and make kind of fun of it, if you were a Republican and you had somebody dressed as Joe Biden in a dunk tank, like Bozo the Clown, and throw balls at him to dunk him, I mean, okay, I could accept that. But the idea of punching and kicking and I mean, that, and as you kind of pointed out tonight, the video that you chose tonight pointed out, a level of intensity and violence that is really, 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 really scary. Because these people, and you're not supposed to say these people, well, I'm going to say it, because those people ain't my people and ain't me. Mm-hmm. These people, there's no, and again, remember, everyone, this doesn't end on Election Day. As Brian's pointed out time and time again, we have all the constitutional and could get the Supreme Court. But even in that, those voters aren't going away. They're here until they die. The Republican Party is not going back to its old ways. Not in my lifetime, it would take decades. And, again, Republicans who aren't that good are leaving Congress because they can't handle it, right? And, they're saying, and you've got Marjorie. Okay, and this is going to be a way I'm going to end the shows, not end the shows, but talk each time. We were talking, a group of us down here, and I came up with this idea. I'm going to propose, do you remember Gilligan's Island, Brian? You do, right?
Absolutely.
Don't fall asleep on me. Okay, and for anybody who's not familiar with Gilligan's Island, look it up. And it was these seven tourists trapped. It was an impossible story, it's funny. But they had two very lovely ladies. One was called Ginger, and the other was called Mary Ann. Right. And Mary Ann was a fresh-faced, kind of, she was actually a model, pageant, and beauty queen. And Ginger was that sultry Marilyn Monroe.
Louise.
Tina Louise, Jean Harper type actress, and pretty much the standard role. Are you a Ginger or are you a Mary Ann?
I knew somebody who dated her. Believe it or not, he was a
Well,
retired,
that's
whatever, not from Cherry Hill. He was at school.
dated
system.
Ginger.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go into it because I'm going to tell you
Oh
privately
no,
something.
but I'm saying Ginger.
He
not
actually he was dating. He ended up dating Tina Louise's in college, her roommate. But he did. I just leave it at that.
I
I'll
know.
tell you that.
No,
Okay.
no. I was a kid, and more, I was just.
But
making sure.
Tina Louise was
I was
okay,
just
Alan
making sure
Hale
it was
Jr. was there.
Not. Not.
By the way, Alan Hale Jr. looks exactly like his father. It was like really screwed up.
It is a carbon copy.
Yeah.
You are right.
Bob Denver.
But anyway, coming back with this idea, you either, it's like they always say, are you camp this or camp that? So it's choice. I'm going to put you on the spot tonight, Brian, in the Congress. Are you team Marjorie Taylor Greene or are you team Lauren Boebert?
For what?
Just like Marianne and Ginger. Just
Oh,
pick
that.
one. You got to pick one.
I wouldn't.
This is-
I wouldn't touch any. First of all, I don't like either one of them. But I wouldn't go near Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's something about her that disgusts me.
Maybe everything.
And even if you looked at the promo that we had here for today, she's one
Right.
of the ones that I chose. I should have
Right.
made her uglier in there, but
Well, you can always work on it. It's not something you can't do. I
but Boebert's a horrible. She's a horrible.
Well,
she's
we
an
are.
ugly
It's
human
a-
being.
you know.
Nothing about her looks. Her just the type of person she is. She's ugly.
it's just it's an interesting kind of it's like the question would you rather die by fire or water? Neither way is pleasant, but and we'll see. It looks like Boebert will not be back in Congress the way things are shaping out. She'll lose, but again, she is a power and she's there. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is the person that I think we all need to look at. She's not going to lose, I don't think, in Georgia anytime soon. And she is completely off the rails, completely.
Yes,
Completely.
she's obnoxious.
Even the other MAGA people can't deal
I
with
would
her.
guarantee you, Dave, that when she was in high school, she got in a fight.
That would be interesting. And we could find that out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I say we never, Brian is very...
Fight with
insistent
another
on-
girl, I'm sure. I mean, it's just
Right. No, Brian is very insistent upon this. We do not monetize. But if enough of our viewers would pay for a plane flight and a car for me to fly to Atlanta and then drive, because she doesn't live near Atlanta, I could go back and visit the community and ask people who went to high school with her, did Marjorie Taylor Greene ever get in a fight? But you know what's interesting? And again, I would laugh and say, what a person necessarily did in their teenage years or their childhood years or even their early 20s and sometimes in their 30s doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on where you are now. But in her case,
right.
it does.
If you are, somebody who progresses as a human being, and you learn from your mistakes, but not everybody does that.
Did we miss? I mean, we tried to address tonight, I think, as many comments as we could. Sometimes we're in the middle of a thought. Is there anything we missed, Brian, that I always want to make sure that we don't leave the show with somebody's question. A lot of times they're comments, but
I think we've had, and I like the comments. I think I like comments more than the questions, because
oh, see, Jeff, you and I part company there. That's I mean, why not? What was she thinking? And you know what? One of two things. I believe at this point she feels that she's a little bit above the law and the rules don't apply to her. I mean that's
well,
pretty.
don't you think, Dave, in general, the reason why these people are so abusive and they have such an anger toward the LGBTQ community, you have to look at their past. Just like Hitchens used to say, you look and you see what happens to these altar boys. It's not surprising, there are enough people that have completely dysfunctional families. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm not surprised.
Certainly, she's produced now, and again, I would prefer not to have to attack families, but you do if they're trying. If someone's trying to set family values for a nation. You have to look at their values and see
Right. I mean,
what they are.
who knows what happened in her? I mean, first of all, what happened in that theater? She doesn't understand. You don't bring your shit to work or even to play. And it makes me wonder what happened in that family.
We and her own.
And
family.
I'm not a prude here. I'm just saying that.
Well, no, we're not saying that. Well, I mean, really, realistically.
But there's
okay?
this.
If you don't realize you can't give your boyfriend a hand job in a public theater while vaping,
Right.
all right? So it's not just one thing, then there's something wrong. And of course, unfortunately, you don't want anybody's child to suffer. But since then, just since that incident, she and her husband involved in a brutal kind of divorce, but he has charges against him.
You saw it with the Palin family too.
Well,
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here we go. Out on a limb, right? One of the dangers about being in any profession that calls for travel a lot and intensity, you're not around for your family. I mean, I used to tell my students, I said, you're going to have to make a decision because there is no balance. You can let your career consume you, and your family will suffer. You can let your family consume you and your career will suffer. Now, each one of you are, in a different way, that would be a worst case scenario. I said, but honestly, there is no automatic, you have to try to find the balance because it doesn't work. And I think so many times, and there is the American myth from mostly poor people, that the rich are somehow, while they hate them, they're somehow better, well, they are better off financially. But I mean, could you imagine, and I can't, not only Mary Trump, but a few others know, and Donald and his dead brother, what it would be like to grow up in the Trump family. I mean, from what I know, the mother was not loving, not warm, not nurturing, not nature, and his father was consumed with money, and we know it's not made up. Was
Power.
a fascist. We know that Donald first got involved by trying to, and what you find a lot of times too, and I'll have to ask some psychiatrists. Maybe we'll get a psychiatrist on the show to analyze Donald, but he strikes me as part of his drive, which is usually this way. He's trying to please his father. Yeah, there you are too, Jeff. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I hate to do. I would almost think that there had to be, marijuana in that, simply to do that in a public place. But well, Trev, I really respect you. I like you, but nah. Ginger was the one. Marianne was too wholesome. Although I did meet her in later years.
Yes, and you picture somewhere, but Tina Louise was a very attractive actress.
Well, so was Marianne. It was basically, again, pardon, it was a sexist time, or a more sexist time. One was fresh-faced and wholesome. The other was sultry. Mm-hmm. It was the two. They really were. They casted that show very, very well. And I said, you could make a case, that Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene are kind of, would be the opposites of what you're. And speaking of, Brian, your, why delays, what the hell is up with the Matt Gaetz case? It was on, it was hot, it was supposed to be decided. He has shown, it is clearly, he has shown pictures to congressmen on the floor of Congress, and it died out. Okay, I said, well, something happened. They re-brought it around, and now suddenly, 2 weeks later, what's the old saying? 2 weeks, crickets. I mean, you don't hear anything about it.
Well, this is why I have no faith in the judicial system, because it seems those Trump, and even before Trump, with the Federal Society, there's enough of them in there. There's the Bruce Schraders of the world that, look, I understand that I can't even begin to think that, all these decisions should be aligned with my politics. But I think it's so obvious, just like it's so obvious that Trump knew that he lost. It's just so obvious that you have these corrupt judges there, and they're willing to put their thumb on the scale. And that was a clear example with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. That was absolutely clear.
Did you see Don't ask me. He's making a college tour now to speak, Kyle.
I saw that, and he got chased out of. Well, he ran out of the.
And of course, they being MAGA people, attacked, and it does pose an interesting problem. But Kyle Rittenhouse, until he would,
she's the only one left. Sorry to interrupt.
That's true. No, that's right. Because I got to see. It's a long story, but anyway, there's a big nostalgia conference in the Washington area, and a friend of mine is very active in that, and they bring on all those past stars, and Mary Ann, the character Dawn Wells, was there, and she was very kind. I was doing a story on her, and she let me spend the day with her, there dealing with people. Oh, she was so sweet to people and so nice. At the end, not giving away tales. That girl can drink. I don't mean she was an alcoholic. I mean, she can drink. We stayed up for a while, but it was really fascinating.
Girl can drink. I like that.
No, I mean, I'm sitting there going, man, when I was, before I went to rehab, I could drink and do some drugs too. But that girl, I mean, she could flat put it down. But still, even with that, it was just a very, very nice, accommodating person to her fans. And that's part of her image. And I think she, was able, which is interesting. In a political way, you have to do that. You have to bring your personality in line with your image, to where you seem somewhat genuine. And she was able to do that. Gilligan would have made an interesting president, Bob Denver. Which again, though, and unfortunately, we do live in an age of celebrity. Who else we didn't talk about tonight? But I think we'll talk tomorrow morning. I want to move the culture part off Saturday night into the other plan we have. Mm-hmm. But P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, bad week. And of course, already, there are people who know exactly what happened. And you know who does know exactly what happened? Puff Daddy. That's it.
Right.
But of course, and the other thing, maybe I would really like if one of our viewers or viewer listeners, whatever we call them, could say, I really don't get the MAGA fixation on grooming gay males, some with gay females, but more gay males, as if, and the old argument used to be that they were, closet homosexuals if you were against them. It's something deeper than that. I guess for the best case, it's, you've spoken of it a number of times. I guess best case, it's religious indoctrination against the abomination of God. And wouldn't it turn out cool? It would turn out so cool, I think. And this is going to be my closing remark tonight. Of course, as always, Brian, you'll get the last word. Wouldn't it be cool if the following happened? If the Bible were really true, I'm not saying the word of God, but true, and Jesus reappears, as it says in the Bible, and he said, I have to tell you something. When I was marching across, the desert, and when I was doing, I was gay and I still am. That would blow me away. That would be pretty cool. Jesus says, I'm gay. So all you people, who've been attacked, you've been attacking me. And guess what? Snap,
I think, this goes too deep, but just in general, people who are indoctrinated by religion, I think they probably have problems with it at times, but I think that they look for eternal life. And my intuition tells me, Dave, that if all of a sudden science solved that problem and they were given the choice, look, you can stay religious and believe that you're going to have eternal life, or we actually have the ability to do that, what would you do? And I would bet that people would it'd be the same thing going to the hospital when you're sick instead of saying,
and I'm not so sure that they wouldn't stay right where they are, because if you take COVID as an example, they didn't know those who believe strongly against anti-vaxxers really did. I know what you're saying. I understand that.
Yeah, I think, but I still think they have that existential problem.
I agree, but but the problem is the fact that if you were to ask me, and we're not going to get into this great, philosophical, theological debate, but I think there's a good point that along a number of lines, science is God. You know what I mean? It's God is not a person or a guy with a white hat. I mean, I think there's,
Well, it's a search for the truth.
And that's what I'm saying.
What is, or to
and
understand what is. Let's just say
right.
that much.
And the problem becomes that's a wonderful individual journey that every person should make, right? Their whole life. You know, spend your life, being good to people and kind and all that. But for yourself, what is truth? What is good? And seek it and promote it and work toward it. What is bad? What is evil and destroy? And avoiding it or working against it. And I think we're going to have a real chance, no matter how that election turns out, to figure out what we're going to do with Donald Trump and his people. Just like the Romans, if he was a real character, had to figure out what to do with Jesus and his people, because Trump's people are following him the same way Jesus' followers followed him.
Yeah, well.
All right, my man, I'm done. I got to get out here. And in the old days, Brian, I think about this now. As I said, as you get older, we all begin to think more about mortality. And when you have a 72nd birthday, you think more of it, like I did last week. But I was just sitting here now. Don't ask me why. And all of a sudden, I started to get a second wind. I got a little tired. And I said, man, in the old days, I might just be heading out right now on Saturday night.
Right, you're right. Though I think there is one good thing about our own mortality, and that is that, well, there's really two, but one is that we can experience dying, but we don't experience our death. So in a certain sense, within our lifespan, we have an eternity, because it's all we'll know is our life. We'll never, the minute it happens, you're not aware of it. So you're always being aware your entire life. And that's something to be said. We'll never actually experience death. We will know that we are heading toward it, just like now we kind of know. And as you get older, you get more of an appreciation for it, because when you're young, you can contemplate getting in an accident and dying early.
You're invincible,
Right. But when you get older, then you notice, it's death is really starting to invite you here, and you're going to be headed that way. We all are. We have to be reasonable with ourselves. But the truth is we will never technically.
Isn't it strange in one sense? And I don't know what it means, but nobody from the dead has ever come back.
Not even Houdini, and he promised he would.
If anybody could. I mean, yes, there are people who believe the Ouija board did it, and there are people who believe, a couple of biblical people did it. But quite honestly, they don't. So you're absolutely right, Brian. We don't know. And you've said before, and on a number of occasions, I kind of tend to agree with you. We don't remember before we were born.
It's pretty obvious.
And what I believe, and again, not that anybody cares what I believe, nor should they, but if pressed to really say, the best I can say is I think there is a force, an energy that leaves your body when you die, and does sort of go back up in a way. Joni Mitchell was right. We are stardust. I mean, it goes back,
right.
not any part of it, but going on. And that, if you can believe that, that's kind of reassuring, because in that sense, you won't be aware of it, but your essence will will live on.
If I had to put my bets on it, I'd say that this is it. But that was my second thing. I said there was two things about it, and that is that people like myself, people who are atheists, you realize that you're only going one time around, and you don't see any evidence of anything but that you respect the time that you have, and you just make the best of it. It's a good motivator. Death is a wonderful thing in a certain way, because it tells you.
I agree.
Because if you have this attitude that you're going to keep going, that's fine with your beliefs, but you do a lot of things that are critical, that you're wasting. We have this Pascal's wager, but there's the other side of it. Like, you could waste all of your days preying on things, and you have to do something.
Well, I think that line I think is so important. Prayer is fine, but prayer without action is meaningless. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? In other
hasn't
words,
saved one soul.
even if it's all true, you still have to act. I mean, that's what.
And by the way, that makes you think about a God in general. Like when there's no act, and you can't just say, "Well, he's mysterious." I mean, that seems to be. It's pretty bad if you're not getting involved when people are dying and animals are getting slaughtered and all this kind of stuff. Then this is the wrong universe for me. I can already tell you, the universe doesn't care.
Well, I think that is true too. I mean, I think the universe doesn't care.
There's no other evidence but that.
I think that you can care while you're here, though.
Oh, an individual can.
Yeah,
that's why, in a certain sense, from my angle, we are God, because we're not Supermen, but we have to put on the suit because we're the only ones who can do something. And as far as we can know, we're the most intelligent thing in the universe. And even if we aren't, there's no way we're going to get to that other part of the universe because it's just too far. It's physically too far away. And you can only go so fast. You can't make it.
Maybe we're ahead of the time because there are people who believe on April 8th, it'll be the end of times. Maybe what's
one day they'll be right, of course. But they'll be right for them. One day will be the end of their time before that time.
Again, we're getting way not off track because
we're getting
too
philosophy. Yeah, well,
politically,
it's actually the most important question.
I was going to say, I would ask this to anybody anywhere. If you are a Christian, that is very good. I mean, that's fine. Okay, but if who do you think is the more Christian candidate, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? And it's clear. It's clear. It's Joe Biden.
It's very clear.
I mean, Joe Biden. The biggest stumbling block he has is he is a Catholic, defying the church's hierarchy of being accepting of abortion. But other than that, I mean, he goes to church. He does. He's and it's like, okay, you want to be a Christian, go with the Christian guy. But again, it's not just that. It's so many other things. And we all have a moral compass. And Anthony, I agree. I just wonder with Donald Trump how freaking damaged that it has to be completely damaged. Or he has to be somehow, his narcissism doesn't allow him.
Well, if you're a good person, you have to sacrifice something. And he's unwilling to sacrifice himself.
Well, what I'm hoping for is when he goes up against my girl, and I make no pretense about it, my girl Stormy Daniels, even if
who is a Republican, folks. Just I found out.
I know we were talking about that, but she's still my girl. I hope if Marjorie Taylor Greene showed pictures of Hunter Biden in sexually compromised positions, I hope somehow that Stormy or Michael Cohen could leak them to her, has pictures of Donald's privates. Because, the way she's described them. But can you imagine? We were having this friggin' discussion. We're talking about the highest office in the land. And we're talking about one of the candidates' penises. Because
it's so absurd.
He's
because that kind of crap is like way over here. And when you're holding a position that is probably considered a character-driven position, the highest in the world, and then you've got that, and that's where you're going to go, then then maybe we deserve to lose everything.
Well, again, look,
or maybe Freud was right, and we have these infantile people who just can't get past the anal stage.
And well, that's true. I think, what did I say here? I mean, Donald Trump is what happens when you let reality TV on, and that's okay. But when you begin to believe, Donald Trump is not a good businessman. Donald Trump can hold all the Bibles he wants. He's not a moral person.
He is not.
So what do we got here? We're going to let Anthony close it tonight. Division of church and state must be maintained at all costs. Anthony, I would do that. And I I do think that there are many now I'm talking about the MAGA elites, which they do have. All right, your favorite Flynn is one of those. Bannon is one of those, and what they want is that they would like to just have. Just got out from my sister in the hospital.
Veg is here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're running along in some ways. Brian has never been accused. The word just doesn't apply to him. I mean, long is just not something you do. Long on brains, it's not something. But thank you. What do we got, Trucker John? It isn't that Biden favors abortion. Yes, I agree. That's the thing. Look at what you said, Trucker. It couldn't be said any better. You need, in a democracy, the freedom to make your own choices about certain issues, and that's one of them. What right do we have? I think it's a double. I mean, I don't know what right I have as a man to dictate, the choices of women do, and I don't think as just a general person, we're not that way. All right, Brian, you're falling asleep, man. You're getting old.
No, actually, I'm getting rebounded, but yeah, it is time to end the show, though. So, folks,
you know what's nice? We're never going to end. This for those of you who are relatively
long
new
goodbye.
Viewers, we used to go. We used to do 2 hours,
right?
And in a way, Brian, it's funny. I've been I've been tightening the thinking more because of the election, and this last part is really where we were kind of shining when we just went off. And I mean, in this particular election, if you're talking about morality in any way, you're talking about this election. I mean, you're not off. It's not like, we're going to talk this here and that talk there, and that's kind of fun. So maybe I don't know how many of our viewer listeners were tuned into the early shows.
But I think my feelings about this, and I'm sure those who are watching do. That when you talk about ethics or morality, I think it has a lot to do with your ability to have a logic as a person. I mean, if you're a logical person, you understand somebody else's pain. But these people lack logic, and if you go into, I mean, I teach languages now, of course, and Dave, you know that, which is a big change for me. But even language itself, even your own native language, how people acquire language. If we say the word beautiful, everybody grows up in a different way. So when they hear the word beautiful, it's different from one person to the next. And
prove your point. I'm going to say the word beautiful, and what comes to your mind now?
Well, first of all, if you look at, when people say like, "Oh, that's a beautiful color," well, the next person could say, "Well, that's not beautiful." It's just because the way they've grown up.
Right.
So what's attached to that word in the brain, it's completely different. So language in itself, and it was Wittgenstein or whatever his name was, the German, who mentions you can't even talk about philosophy because language itself is the language of logic, and if we don't have the proper words to describe everything, then we're not. Our whole reality is based on language.
And speaking of language, Donald Trump
he has a limited vocabulary.
On more occasions, he says, "I have words. I have good words.
Yeah, I have the
very best words." I said, "Well, if you do, you're not using them, Donald." All right, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah, we got real philosophical there, but
that's okay. But thank you, everyone who came in. As always, you, the viewer listeners, are really the key, because we could always say, if a tree falls in a forest, you don't hear. But that's just a way of saying, that we have decided, and I think it's the right decision, that, there's no show without them. I mean, I don't think we would do this.
No.
I mean, what we do is what we used to do. We do it on the phone.
We did it on the phone. This was our phone conversation. We'd be on the phone for 2 hours.
A long time,
Right.
So anyway, hope to see everybody next week. Hope, whether you are a Christian believer or not or something else, that your week starts well.
And you never know. We might have a show that we record. Who knows?
Who knows? We're going to, again, for anybody, we're not being coy. We're debating some changes. And again, as a final note, the first of which is we're going to open up our Facebook Divided We Stand page to anybody who responds to a invitation from anybody already with this show. That's the new policy.
And please subscribe if you're out there incognito. Please subscribe.
All right, Mr. Brown, I'm out of here.
All right.
Take care, bro.
Adios,
Bye.
everybody.